exchanging about how to optimize digital journeys with KYC and AI as such to improve customer engagement. Since we have a roundtable with distinguished guests, I'm going to introduce the various participants, and then we'll go into the core of the debate. So I shall start with Pierrick. You are a manager at BoursoBank. So you worked on the development of innovative payment, credit, and then customer relations, integration of ING clientele, and by extension, all the journeys to do with getting into contact using AI, or at least partially. Then Laurent, you are the head of compliance and payment control and cyber in the ONI group, and the function that you had for BNP Paribas before. And then we have Hervé, you are CEO of Archipels, a platform for decentralized identity, checking to certify the identity of companies and physical people, relying on blockchain, which working with French trusted partners, Caisse des Dépôts, La Poste, EDF, ENGIE, or INCOBE. And then Yves, you are the Vice President of SAFE ONB, aiming at building a common environment between the bank and the various ecosystems. You are also Vice President of the Commissioner on Electronic Identity, and you are in charge of anything to do with ID digital. SAFE ONB, I'm also a banker, but today I'm not speaking as a banker, but I'm in charge of the whole aspects of interbank relationship of La Banque Postale, but we'll talk more widely, not just about La Banque Postale. Thank you, Yves. Now, today's topic is to wonder about how we are in a capacity to optimize the customer journey using KYC and AI to develop customer engagement. In my introduction, I mean, it may be a funny question because using KYC to develop engagement of customers because they use more and more the services and the apps that are being given, it could be a strange question because KYC could be felt as a constraint because with all the remediation campaigns, we know that for the contact journeys, the fact that you are remote, it generates extra constraints. So we could ask, why this question? And this is what we'll be seeing with you today. I think that we are at a breaking point as such, or a disruption point. There's an evolution in the regulatory framework that provides real opportunities, and at the same time, you have all the AI capacity that are developing to provide complementary opportunities. So it is really a pivoting point where elements could be constraints around KYC, could change into opportunities when we address them in the right direction. So we're going to actually give you an audit, taking stocks of where we stand today to go into this direction. So if I start in terms of customer engagement, thank you, Mathieu. And actually, the customer engagement, we'll talk about our engagement. So we commit to engaging the bank and giving the possibility to everyone to. So it translates into a customer engagement that is on a daily basis and is materialized. It is the identity of Boursorama. So this is the brand is materialized by welcoming a high number of clients. We have an objective of acquiring 1 million customers and 1.4 million new customers last year. This is how we materialize this customer engagement, and we can see it as well through IPS. So it imposes some responsibilities to equip them, make them retain them, and from their arrival to their departure. So we'll detail that later on. Thank you, Pierrick. Laurent, at ONI? Well, first, ONI is who? It is the leader of BNPL in the French market, present in Spain, Portugal, and the northern countries, also Romania and Italy. And the true topic for ONI engagement is materialized for our customers in two ways. First, it's our physical clients, but also our major partners who are significant in the French market. I'm talking about partners like Leroy Merlin, Auchan, Electrodépôt, Decathlon, Boulanger, for whom BNPL is important. And the central point on which we will be able to debate is our commitment is to give satisfaction, satisfy and reassure our customers, because we market two kinds of products, payments, easy payments. So it's not a credit. KYC could be a constraint for our customers and for our partners. So where is the truth? Where is our responsibility? So we are always in an approach of solution. And then the whole scoping of the legislation that imposes as part of KYC to check the perfect identity in the case of anti-money laundering, terrorist fighting against it, but also bank fraud. So we have to find the balance between what customers want, what partners want, while observing the rules for the interest of customers, but also for the interest of legislation. Now, if we look into the use cases, maybe we should start with the contact. How do you do that at Bourseau? Well, as I was saying, we've welcomed 1.4 new clients last year. So we made a decision, the drastic decision is to progressively switch to a mobile contact journey. We had two before, they were not the same nature, not based on the same measures. So 2023, we switched about 20% of contacts to 95% through mobile. So it is an instant solution. Really, we had under 10 minutes availability as well, 24/7. And that relies on expert system, classic AI, but also machine learning, because we have all the regulatory check in real time, but also biometric checks. So that was the first use case that we developed intensely last year to welcome all these customers. We have a couple of KPIs to share because we've got a promise of instant and simple contact. It's in under 10 minutes. The document check in less than 10 seconds. The living proof is under 1 minute. And we also have a performance rate on these of transformation on these state that is very satisfactory. More than 95% of our customers go to the end. And if we compare that with the at ONI, we're not on the same issue for account opening, since we don't open an account. We just give an agreement for financing on the principle. So we need to have partners. When you pay the money, you ensure that the account was opened properly. So to ensure that the destination of the fund, and today we have two issues when we have fraud or the KYC can be done differently, and still the destination of the funds is operated that way. So our issue is that how we have a robust KYC, knowing that we mustn't be intrusive, and at the same time, our clients, whether in a cross-sale, upsale, or acquisition, the customers are used to giving the ID. So we don't have a cultural issue of giving the date of birth, the place of birth, sending the ID. It's a rather simple operation, or even logical. But what we need is to reassure our clients on the way we're going to use that data, on the way we are going to communicate information. And this is where we will develop a whole interface using AI. What they want is simplicity, speed, and reassurance. Our clients need to be reassured, and our partners as well. And this is how, so we'll be complementary to a traditional classic bank. Thank you, Pierrick. Laurent was talking about the upsell. How do you do that at Bourseau in terms of upsell following the contact? Along the same principles, for those clients who so wish, they can be asked for upsell and cross-sell. And it's on a daily basis through the various uses that our clients have, whether it's daily banking, like making a transfer. We could advise if he is accepted, there's an interface of actually accepting a consent, whether they want to be notified like that. For example, offering to go for a savings book or a bank card. So it's our clients have got the control over what they can be asked about, and then the access to all our products. And this is concretized, materialized by customization within the various journeys to engage clients.
So anything to add, Laurent? In fact, it's the acquisition. What you have to understand about all this is that KYC for us has an important value against fraud. That's capital. And today, in the work that we have to do and in the experience and the customer commitment, we have to bring the customers to understand that if you're going to finance your sofa in 3 payments, that's not really credit. I mean, the legislation doesn't ask us for, customer identification, but it's important for the customer to give that information. We have to educate the customer. We have to do education, prevention, and then regulation. And so in the new consumer credit regulations, there's going to be a transposition where we have to ask a little bit more information for these credits. These are not real loans or credits. They look like credits, but they're not real credits. And they oblige us to be a little bit more precise on the way in which we will address this subject. And that's where artificial intelligence will help us. But find this frontier of where the information can help us do what needs to be done. Now, we can discuss this, but in the upselling and cross-selling, it's the same thing. The identity of the customer is important. It's a commitment. It's an engagement. And the question is, how do we find simplicity and speed and conviviality, which is what the customer wants, and how we obtain the data and use the data. And all that's the work that we're doing today. And all this is integrated into an approach based on simplification. And because our customers are not just physical customers, they're also our moral customers. They're entities. And so it's very important that the customers understand how we deal with this data and how we deal with their customers as well. So we can see that those are 2 themes that are really primordial in terms of the optimization that we do for the customer journey. We can see this is where KYC plays an important role. Now, Yves, how can we make sure this is done correctly in respecting the rules as such? Yes, we have to verify that this is done with confidence and trust, so that people have confidence and trust in the bank. Now, I talked with my colleagues, and there are really 2 phases for the appreciation of KYC. The first is to begin or enter the relationship, and that's where we're going to use AI to help verify the documents and maybe also the behavior, especially in terms of fraud for short-term risks and things like that. But then we also have to have guarantees that AI is not biased and that the decisions are done correctly. Now, we're going to transform the financial consultant into an augmented financial consultant. We're going to benefit from artificial intelligence, and that's where we have to have tools and the means to guarantee that all this is done correctly. We have to remember that AI is also used a lot for behavioral analysis, especially in terms of fraud for payments, and it's a tool that is used very much for these purposes. So in all cases, we need to have an AI in which we have confidence, and to create an AI in which we trust. There's nothing better than having norms and standards and certification, because norms and standards are really important, and they're the reference for certification. And so today, we're sort of seeing that the stars are starting to align, because everything is showing up at the same time. Now, it started in about 2018. In 2018, in terms of the Strategic Committee for Normalization that I preside, we created a white paper on AI, which launched with the starter of an International Normalization Commission at the GTC in SC42. The 42 obviously is very important. And the works started, and France was really very important for ethical issues, because in the SC42 roadmap, we didn't have the issues related to ethics. So this is something that we brought forward with the first security studies with the reports of Cédric Villanique in 2018. And in 2018, we also had the first works that was done by the European Commission to prepare what would become the IADA, the IADES-2. And in 2023, we had the publication of the ISO 42001, which allowed us to do certifications. And then we hope that we will soon have the publication of the Act, and this is going to allow us to create an AI of confidence, trusted AI, because the ISO 42001 is going to allow us to guarantee that the AI that we use and that we integrate and maybe also use in conjunction with the AI solutions that are delivered or provided by other suppliers, we will be able to create an entire environment of confidence, of trust, and we can be able to use it with confidence. And so this norm, this standard, is going to become very important, and we are going to have the same degree of importance, I believe, that the 27001 for cybersecurity, which we all know, or for the management of organizations, the 9001 standard, which is also broadly used. So we are manufacturing and certifying an AI of confidence, and which can be used for all uses related to KYC and other uses throughout the banking world. Thank you. Yes, that really sets the framework for AI. Now, for KYC, Hervé, what are the principles to do this properly as you're doing it through the Archipel platform? Yes, to add to this notion of trust and confidence, and to accelerate the customer relationships, the entry into country relations, we have to have trust in the data that's supplied. At Archipel, we work on the certification of documents and data within the digital wallets, and we are starting on the certification of documents. That's where justifications of residency and things like that. We're also working on digital data of citizens and companies so that we can provide certified data when needed. And today, we have to consider that part of the data that's provided by individuals in terms of KYC could be data collected from authentic sources, like proof of an address, for example. That's a service, for example, that we propose. And you can also have banking data, like the as under the DSP too. And this is a context that really shows that we're talking about authenticated data. And to answer this issue or this problem of fraud and fluidity and churn and other issues like that. These are use cases where we want to make sure we don't lose customers. And EDAS and even EDAS1 with digital identification. For example, if you have identification, a bank ID with substantial identification, this is something that's very important because it means you don't have to do a secondary remote verification of identity, and that's important. And when you talk about remote verification of identity, you have the PVID verification in France that allows you to make sure that remote verification is not just based on AI, but also based on a level of confidence that has been qualified, and also human verification at the end of the AI verification. And this allows us to make sure that we have suppliers that we can trust in France and Europe to make sure that these customer relationship journeys are possible and are in an environment of trust, and that and we can reinforce confidence for all of these entry points. And the goal will be to make sure that we can check the digital identification with all of these authentication procedures based on AI. And there you go, and as the previous people were saying. Yes, so that gives us a good vision of the starting point where we are today. Now, if we take a broader outlook for the future, we'll say, okay, how will KYC and AI evolve to benefit the customer journey? Pierre, maybe you can, if I understand what you're saying earlier, it's going to be a compromise, right? Yes, the idea is to find the proper balance between automation, efficiency, and customer satisfaction. So we look on a daily basis on what is being generated. When we talk about KYC, we look at the customer requests. So we often ask customers so that we understand where we stand, and in terms of KYC, we want them to confirm the information. These are things that, for example, if we ask a customer, have you done if you ask for certain services over the last 12 months, for example, we will constantly be checking and reiterating these processes. So we'll also look at the rate of churn for our customers and see how we can accompany them. Now, on a macro level, when we look at the balance between the short term and the long term, wallets are kind of more based in the medium term, I would say. So we're looking at this with a very interested eye, and so we have questions about automation in terms of documents, and also have automation in terms of the visibility of the documents that are provided. And we prefer, and so to get back to the theme of when we ask a mobile customer, a centric mobile customer, to scan a code on a digital invoice, it's something that disrupts the journey. So we're trying to limit this as much as possible because it's a disruptive sort of act that we try to avoid. And so that when you look at the different AI systems, where you have all the expert systems that are used to automate as much as possible all these things, we have machine learning and LLM and all these other aspects that are pertinent. So that gives us a good outlook for banking. If you look at traditional banks, Laurent, you were saying that the data model is maybe how do you see the data models? And well, ONE is not really like a traditional bank. I mean, it's not a bank. It's now, of course, it's quite a thin line, but for ONE, the contact data is very important, extremely important, and COVID really disrupted our traditional model. Now, all our data today is dynamic. It used to be contact data, but now it's solvency data. And so the real question we're looking at now is that when we've got a customer in front of us, is it a real client or a false client? So we have to have, so getting data like name, first name, date of birth, that's easy. But these are static date. For example, birth date will always stay the same. But the email address or the telephone number or contact information and this information that connects us. And so we use AI to guarantee that we have sort of collective consistency with this information, and that's capital. And another important point is all this approach is used essentially for what? It's always to reassure the customer and to reassure ourselves and reassure our partners. Today, we have a lot of problems around embezzlement, fraud, theft. It's a disaster for our sector. And today, we have to find the proper balance with all these different initiatives, and AI must not disrupt the confidence that our customers have in us. AI will provide a lot of developments, but we have to maintain our responsibility and our ambitions. And our ambition is to use AI to keep the connection, the contact with the customer, which is fundamental for us. So this balance, this equilibrium continues to develop and prospers. But as a risk manager, I tell my engineers and my fellow team members that all of these aspects are going to evolve. And I say, remember, never lose the contact with the customer, because the customer is really at the heart of all of this. So, and this is the heart of all the decisions that we will take. Thank you. So, Hervé, you were saying this earlier in terms of the wallet, the digital wallet, in which it will be a real revolution. And as Laurent was saying, we're going to have a transition towards something. We're going to move to an environment much more focused on data. Yesterday, we understood that the usage would be based on using data rather than documents as we do today. But what is the outlook, if you look to the future, on the revolution that we're facing with this digital wallet in terms of the different uses? Yeah, for me, there are two main themes, two main answers. There's the axis of security against fraud, identity theft. We know that the systems for remote authentication of identity is not 100% reliable, and we have deepfakes. The risk of deepfakes is increasing. We have a number of big players in remote authentication that published two figures. It was just, I think, about 2 years. It was less than 1% of the fraud, which was based on deepfakes. And theft identity, it's now 2% this year, and now we're pushing now recently towards 6%. So AI is creating new forms of fraud. You can imagine deepfakes on systems of verification of identity, remote authentication of identity. So all of this is related to AI and the risks of AI, and digital wallets provide an additional level of security, because when you do an onboarding on your wallet, you have a strong identification and you have the possession of an element that's very strong, which is your device. Your telephone, for example, your smartphone, but that can make sure that you confirm that you are the person that you say who you are. So we have a level of security that's a lot stronger than when you have digital identification or digital wallets of the future. So that's a strong element that speaks in favor of digital wallets rather than the current systems without the strong authentication factors. And the other element, which is more prospective, beyond just the question of digital wallets for identification, we can imagine that the wallet will become a means of customer commitment for brands, in particular for the financial actors. It's going to be a very strong vector, because once you have this relationship of confidence and with your financial institution, thanks to this wallet, I'm in an environment where I might share more data voluntarily to personalize the services I can receive. So we believe very strongly that the wallet is not just an initial vector for identification and authentication that is very strong, which it is, but I think it's also going to be a channel for exchange and engagement, customer engagement, and this is something that we're starting to see materialize, and we hope to materialize more. Now, with Archipel, the platform that we're creating a secure messaging system for exchanging data and documents and declarations, and to confirm and strengthen this confidence, and that's another element. And then with AI, we can also imagine that this digital wallet, which we often call self-governing, I mean, it's under our own control. I have trust in the confidence. I have trust in the data that I put into it, and we can imagine the Gmail, for example, might become sort of like a personal agent where you might deal with a certain number of elements in my place and maybe make recommendations. I might update my address in my digital wallet. Then AI will say, okay, over the last 12 months, you provided your address to this and this service. Would you like to transmit your new address to those same services to update that? That's a very simple example, but you can imagine this type of developed service. And this channel through a digital wallet would allow you to have continual remediation, which I call continuous KYC, which is like once you've accepted to share a certain amount of elements with my bank, a certain amount of data, I might tell my AI or my personal assistant to, if Borso asks me for this information, give it to Borso. I consent that all that's automated. So we can imagine that, for example, there would be a lot of solutions like that, of automation, of updating information, not just in terms of banking services, but also automation in my digital wallet with the help of AI, which will recommend to do something or help me to do something that I might want to do. And then in the future, we might also have sort of practically autonomous agents that do things for me in my stead, in my place. So that's one sort of outlook. But for it to work, these AIs and these personal assistants must really have a very strong level of trust and confidence. Do I trust? And you have to have trust in the environment, the data environment in which they function, and the data in which I have them process are personal data, or for companies, it should only work on the data that I authorize and not everything else. So there's a real challenge in terms of guaranteeing private data, and that's really where this trust will be built, where you provide the data that you want to provide, and so we can already start to see this, the outlook for these digital wallets. And we're talking already with the financial organizations with which we work. There's a very strong added value, and we can see the same idea of continuous compliance with the relationship between the customer and the supplier through various organizations. And in the same way, we're going to automate the vigilance with regard to these suppliers, or sort of, we're going to automate, contact wallet to wallet, and with pre-configuration and automation for companies. And so I think these are very strong arguments for the use of digital wallets, thanks to these automations based on AI that are accessible to everyone. Yes, thank you. Yves, to mirror this outlook, how will the frameworks evolve in the short and medium term? Well, we talked about the long term. No, let's call it medium term, the medium term. But in a few years, we will have this IDAS wallet, which will allow us to embed your identification and a whole bunch of attributes that you can then use. And there's today a pilot project that is starting to become operational, in which we are participating as a bank. This is the potential pilot for enrollment. Now, we don't need to wait for that to come online. We can see that there are certain banks that are doing direct enrollment, with substantial or high-level digital identification, because it's already written in the financial coding, and it's sufficient to enter into relationships and business relationships with newly enrolled customers. And so to do the enrollment and then the beginning of the customer relationship. Now, at the European level, we already have the possibility to have certain documents that could be dematerialized and could be integrated into our smartphone. This is what was done by the French state with France Identity, which is an application that now allows you to have a sort of digital dematerialized identity card, and you might even have a driver's license that would also be dematerialized. But there's a little risk here. There's a little crack in the system because you have this control of the identification at the entry point of the system. So can I enter my dematerialized FIN card, but let's say it's a false card? Well, ultimately, you just put any JPEG or PDF and you modify it, and then you can get into the system. So there are limits, and but now some of these limits might be able to be covered by the association of this digital identification with a system that we talked about earlier. It's a system that's already being used, for example, the identity card, which is called now the invisible chip. Excuse me, not a chip, but you have a stamp. You have a sort of stamp that's electronically stamped onto your card. You start having it on lots of different things, like you could even have it on an employee card. These are things that the SNCF train authority, when they saw the France digital identity application come, the SNCF said, no, I don't trust it. I'm not going to use it, because indeed you can make false cards relatively easily. So, but associated with a secondary system of authentication, France Identity is going to do a test with SNCF, and they can also do it with the visible identification stamp as well. Now, in the same room, for example, there will be a conference at 3 p.m. on the invisible identification stamp, and you can see that there are a lot of different uses throughout the world. And there are a lot of excellent ideas being put out there right now. So to finalize, if we look further at all these developments, what do you see? So you look at all the customer uses. They're going to adopt these solutions, and I think it's all going to be centralized at a certain point. It's going to be less fragmented, and the dissemination of data is a real problem for a lot of reasons, for identification reasons, for example. So it's going to be a benefit for everybody, and that's what we seek to attain as quickly as possible. Now, when I talk about the pivot, it's interesting today to look at the different customer journeys. They're very complex. And so this is a subject that's not really clear yet. But if you could go even farther and look at, if you can have a certification on the data with organizations that are trusted and where you have traceability and that are capable of transmitting this information, us as issuers of data, we can then issue qualified data on behalf of our customers. What you can see, what's done by DSP do. There's a certain number of organizations that are being induced, solvency analyses, for example, on the basis of data. We can do similar simulations through aggregation and transmission of qualified data of customers. And so we see this very positively, whether we're talking about digital wallets or digital identification. I think this is work that's really essential potential to move forward for everybody and deliver the maximum number of benefits of these uses to the maximum number of customers. Laurent, if we wanted to sort of paint the future for ONE. Well, okay, we talk an awful lot about generative AI. There's a lot of work being done today on predictive AI and our capacity to be more precise in the use of data for the customer's benefit, whether it's, for example, the fight against fraud. The directives are evolving. All the economic environment is in flux, and so we need consumer credits, consumer credit for and for our partners and for everyone involved in this environment is very important. So we're working very hard on these subjects, and another important point is the whole flow. The legal flow around this context. I'll give you an example. The banking point, we use a lot of AI in open banking. For open banking, we check the solvency of the customer, but behind that, you have access to the accounts, and then you can basically, in that case, you no longer need to provide a justification of revenue. I see someone in the room saying no, but it is the case already today that that if you look at access to the account, the customer has to provide justification of revenues. It's relatively clear, and even if we're working today with the tribunals, the courts, we are able to prove the need, but the environment is very unstable. So for the interest of the customer, at the end of the day, we're going to transmit documents. It's not going to have any added value. So for us, this environment is going to be very important. That's why there's a lot of action, where it's the SF, the APF, and other universes, to find a coherent balance and use these data properly to transmit information that really has an added value, and to take the right decisions that allow us to go beyond the need for certain documents that today transit in the current environment and contribute to these to identity theft or the other risks of fraud. So this is a benefit for the customers in the future. Thank you, Laurent. We're getting to the end of our little exchange. I think we have a little session of questions and answers. So with pleasure, if you want to ask any questions.
Nathalie Launay.
Nathalie Launay, I'm a consultant for Galeta. Regarding the question of solvency and open banking, you talked about the Critique en Sucre directive, which needs to be transposed by the French state. But through that directive, there's two things that are interesting. It juxtaposes jurisprudence on solvency analysis and it takes into account the fact that you also take into account AI as a high risk AI, which is defined in the AI regulation. So that's not just a question of authentication, but also a green light from an authority, which will probably be the CNIL, the Commission Nationale de l'Information et de la Liberté, National Commission on IT and Liberty, which means that all of the rights have to be respected. So you have to have the question of asperity, and also the aspect of the new consumer credit regulations. When I look at the new consumer credit directives, I can see that they really mention specifically that data that is used regarding solvency is really data to analyze revenue. Now you also have the new PSR, the Permanent Payment Service Regulation, which is going to put more regulations on open banking, notably with dashboards and new categories of data. Health data, sensitive data, political data, or data basically related to politics or political orientation. So how do you see all of that within the open banking criteria? So even if you have practices today where you look at the RBGD, which is not really compliant with the current regulations, and with regard to the high-risk AI, which must also integrate the facts of automated decision-making, what is the impact? And it's already taken into the jurisprudence and the consumer credit directives currently underway.
Well, first, open banking raises a number of questions because when clients give us access to accounts, we have access to everything. It doesn't give consent. Yes, and the problem is that you don't receive access to everything for a commercial approach or an intrusive aspect. So for ONI, the access to open banking is only used, we only use the data to help us assess the creditworthy. We don't use the rest. The difficulty we have in the current environment is not accessing data for data, but only the data necessary for making a decision, and this is capital. And today, the difficulty we have is that the open banking gives us access to a universe of data. So for ONI, we're not using the information for commercial ends or intrusive ends or making judgment. The interest is just to say that the data will help us when the client is creditworthy for that requirement. That's the whole what's at stake. So this means that you have open banking with PSR and EDEPS that's going to give its opinion, maybe require revolution only of the permission dashboard, but also the categories of data that the bank can send to an aggregator for processing. Then what do we put behind creditworthiness? What kind of information? In Credit Console Directive, they have defined what you can put. So exactly, yes, it's defined, but remains really theoretical. So really, we have to put the use cases, the main use cases for the interest of clients to make the right decisions. That's the whole point of the environment. Hence, the transposition to have a precise vision and that we use the data properly and AI with an added value for clients and not something that could give us an interpretation that doesn't match our requirement. That's all that environment that require scoping and an alignment of the whole of the players. So alignment of planets and compliant with GDPR. So we have a regulatory big bang for that and creditworthiness. Yes, and this point is really important because we've been telling clients stop sending data, but we say be careful. There is identity theft, but open banking gives us access to all the data. We say to clients, don't send your documents, but we need to have them. So there's a lot of contradiction at the moment. So we're going to work on that so that what we use is exactly it's just so. We talk about the management of our risks, and the GDPR risk is as important as the credit risk. I agree with you. Now, if you allow me to add something in terms of in the works that is going to start about the delegated acts of the AI Act, the 42001 ISO is not enough. There's all the GDPR minimizing data issues, and probably it's very likely that some work will have to be done at SEN so that additional documents to determine the additional documents to take into account the whole European legislation and regulation. Do we have more?